Touch a hot stove and your hand pulls back before you even consciously process the pain. That is a fast feedback loop. Here, cause and effect are locked together. This immediacy keeps us alive. The sudden, sharp arrival of pain forces an instant, undeniable lesson. You don't argue with a burn. But human psychology has a massive blind spot. When a negative consequence doesn't arrive instantly, when it is delayed by months or even years, our behavior completely changes. We enter what we can call the delusion gap. This is a chart showing a timeline of a delayed consequence. We take a harmful action here, at the start. Then, nothing happens. Because of this long, empty space, we start to assume that the absence of immediate punishment means we've successfully outsmarted the system of cause and effect. We mistake a delayed consequence for a canceled one. We project a flat, safe line into the future, assuming we are in the clear. But the actual path diverges sharply, quietly rising toward an inevitable collision. Delayed pain fails to teach us anything useful. Instead, it breeds philosophers of stupidity, people who convince themselves they are immune to reality simply because the bill hasn't arrived yet. We often talk about reality as if it is one participant in a discussion. It is not. Reality is the chairman of the board. You can argue with it, and it will listen patiently to every single excuse, but it always holds a final veto. What fools us is reality's grace period. It sometimes allows bad ideas to run around loose for a while. It lets denial drive a car without insurance, and it lets a structurally weak beam hold weight just long enough for everyone to trust it. You see this at every scale of human life. A person can maintain a destructive diet and abuse their body for years before their organs finally file a formal complaint. A school system can pass unqualified children along from grade to grade for over a decade before employers finally discover that nobody in the applicant pool can actually read. And a government can accumulate massive hidden deficits for decades. This chart compares the flat, highly visible baseline of immediate economic impact against an exponentially growing hidden layer of systemic debt. By the time interest payments consume the entire system, the decay has compounded out of sight. Across all of these scales, the exact same mistake occurs. The temporary absence of failure is weaponized as proof of success. When this gap between action and consequence happens at a societal level, individual denial turns into a collective strategy. When everyone is benefiting from the delay, the group works together to ensure the grace period isn't interrupted by the truth. Because facing a systemic error would require immediate painful correction, societies choose to rename the error instead. If literacy rates are falling, the standards are modernized or reimagined. By framing the failure as a new moral or social goal, the group makes it taboo to point out the underlying reality. Once an error is morally protected, it qualifies for funding. Resources are diverted to support the new narrative, essentially subsidizing the decay. This creates a financial incentive for the delusion to continue, even as the structural damage mounts. To protect this massive investment, the society begins to actively punish anyone who dares to point at the rising smoke. Because the truth teller threatens the comfort of the group, they are treated as the source of the problem. In a decaying society, the person warning of the fire is treated with more hostility than the fire itself. In this way, decaying societies spend the entirety of the delusion gap building elaborate defenses against the truth, rather than doing the hard work of preparing for reality's veto. Then, one day, the bill arrives. The grace period ends, the accumulated delay resolves all at once, and the structural beam snaps under the weight of the facts. When the collapse happens, the societal reaction is perfectly predictable. Everyone stands around the wreckage and claims that no one could have possibly seen the disaster coming. That is almost always false. Plenty of people predicted it, and the evidence was present the entire time. The people pointing at the data were just treated as inconvenient. Human beings can create endlessly complex stories, but reality's final vote permanently overrides every excuse and rationalization. If a story does not match the physical structure of the world eventually rejects it. We tend to call reality cruel when this happens, but reality isn't cruel. It is simply ruthlessly consistent. This graph shows the correlation between denial and consequences. mapping the time spent in denial on the horizontal axis against the cost of correction on the vertical axis. The harshness we experience is directly proportional to how long we spend pretending we were an exception to the rules of cause and effect. A mature person, or a healthy society, operates down here. They respect reality early. They correct small, foundational errors while the cost of fixing them is still low. Wisdom is not about surviving the final vote. It is the practice of actively consulting reality for its veto long before the damage is done.